everybody, and welcome back to the Outdoors Podcast. With me today, I have Matt and Corey. Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Good. Joining us today on our episode is going to be Scott Seibert, and he is out of Minnesota, and we're going to be talking about fishing, which is his major thing that he does and guides for. And I know I had the pleasure of meeting him this past year through Corey, but I don't know, Corey, how did you originally meet Scott?
Yeah, so I met Scott, it's been several years ago now, probably 5-6 years, at the Brainerd Ice Extravaganza, which is where you met him as well. But
technically, I met him at the St. Paul Ice Fishing Show.
Oh, okay. Right. So I met him at the Extravaganza, which for anybody who's listening who's never heard of this thing, it's this event where there's like 10,000 people out on the ice, and a gun goes off, they all drop their lines in, and the person who wins like a Ford F-150. The last place person wins like an Arctic Cat ice machine, and there's like 150 different places in this
I
thing,
wouldn't mind being the last person, though. I would take an Arctic Cat for sure.
Absolutely. It's a very cool event. So anyways, I met Scott up there. He was, at the time, I think they had just finished. They were like the Christian Brothers, Brandy. They were representing them, and they had their like trailer wrapped with that stuff, and they were giving away like free shots and stuff like that. And so they had quite an interesting show. But we met them at the end of that year, and then they stopped doing that after that. And then from there, they took us fishing. So I had talked to Matt Johnson, who's heads up the pro team at Clam. And when I asked him if anyone was up there, he just suggested that we talk to Scott and that he'd take us fishing afterwards. So it just began this yearly ritual of, we go up there, we do the event, hang out with Scott and Shelley, and then Scott takes us fishing.
Yes.
Awesome.
Scott took us fishing. Did Sarah catch one fish? No.
But she did listen to a lot of really great podcasts while we were on the ice.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
I also got really cold, though. My toes stopped working when I tried to get out of the Clam at one point when they caught a fish out on the open ice, and I tripped and fell flat on my face.
I think I've seen a photo of a fish being caught and just Sarah's head sticking out.
Stop.
of the clam.
That's not even true. There was no photos taken, thankfully.
Oh, I think I saw one.
No, didn't happen.
We can always post
That's
a
okay.
picture of Sarah. Yeah. We'll like circle her face, and there she is.
You know what? There was a picture, but it was a good picture. I had the line in, I had my buddy heater, I had everything. I was all set up and ready to go. So that was a good picture. Did I catch a fish? No. But it was a great picture opportunity.
Well, there's always next time.
Yeah.
This year.
She needs to work on her jigging.
Well, anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and get Scott on the line and see what he has to say.
Today we have Scott Seibert. Scott has lived in Minnesota all of his life and grew up in Anoka. He has worked in Maple Grove, Minnesota at REO Plastics, Inc. for 32 years as a manager. Scott grew up in the outdoors, fishing and hunting, and likes to ride ATVs in the summer and snowmobile in the winters. He is a multi-species tournament angler, fishing guide, fishing promoter, and educator, teaching kids about fishing and the outdoors. Welcome, Scott. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no problem, Scott. So thanks for taking the time and coming on here. One of the things that we wanted to spend some time talking with you about is something that's kind of a buzz in the media today, and it's the fishing numbers, whether they're in a growth state or a decline state, and what the future of fishing is going to look like, for our kids and our kids' kids. And so one of the things I wanted to kind of open up and talk to you about is, what are you noticing up there in Minnesota, especially for ice fishing? Are you seeing a lot more youth coming into the sport, or are you seeing kind of a decline there? What's happening for you?
I don't know. I think in the overall, everything is kind of declining in the fishing industry up here. With the programs that we have going on, part of ICE Team, and, there's a lot of different programs out there. The Minnesota DNR runs the Managua program. trying to introduce these kids to the fishing. So, a lot of the clinics that the ICE team puts on is with the youth. So, I mean, we're trying to do everything we can up here to promote the fishing and getting these youths into the fishing.
Right. I had read at one point, and it was some astronomical number. It was like 99% of people who fish today had fished with a family member before they started fishing as an adult. So, basically like 99% of all fishermen today fished with their grandfather or their father or something like that. And the fact that, people are not doing that going forward is what's causing the real decline in fishing turnout.
Yeah, and I mean that's how I started. Definitely, my dad and passed it on to me. So taking me out at a young age, and I think that's how this whole thing starts. Is definitely we got to get these parents, adults and leaderships to take these kids fishing. Even if it's just shore fishing. I mean, around here in Minnesota, we got a lot of piers and stuff like that where you can just if you don't have a boat, it's still easy to just go fish from shore. Get
right.
These guys out there fishing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, talking about that a little bit, I think another one of the challenges that you see is that, you get into it. Fishing's not something that you just, you don't just throw a line in the water and catch something. There's a lot that actually goes into it, from the knots and the type of bait to use and where to fish and things like that. So you said that you had started off learning from your grandpa and your dad as well. For people that don't necessarily have that opportunity, what can they do in your area? Where can they go to learn these things? Maybe a father wants to teach his son. Where's a good place to start off?
A lot of the DNR has a lot of information on their website, and they have a lot of these piers, which lakes these have fishing piers. So it'll give you a description of where and what species are in these lakes. So a lot of information is on the DNR website.
Right.
Species specific. I mean, if you're going to start out kids, don't go take them out muskie fishing, northern fish and walleye fishing. Start them out with some bluegill and perch. That's the easiest fish to catch, and a lot of that you can catch from shore. So the DNR, they will stock some of these lakes and with bluegills and crappies and stuff like that, just to make it easy to catch these fish, to try to get them kids interested. And you always want some type of tugging going on, so just having them sit there, look at a bobber, not catch nothing, that's going to deter them from fishing. So definitely try to fish a species that you're going to get some action watching that bobber go down, or whatever you're going to be, how you're going to fish them. But
And Scott, for maybe some people that have absolutely no equipment that they've bought, and they need to go to a store and they need to buy something for them or for their son or for their family, what sort of things do you think that you would need for your first time fishing off of a shore?
A lot of the stores, they have pre-rigged rods and reels. Just a 6'6" spin cast. You don't want to. If you go with a spin cast, it's push the button, basically cast real easy. It's not the open face spinning reel where the line can get tangled real easy. So I definitely recommend starting out with a spin cast. I know there's a lot of different manufacturers. I work with Zebco Quantum, and they actually have pre-rigged rods and reels. You get a little tackle box with it. You got the bobber. It's basically set up. It's pre-spooled, so you really don't have to do much. But you can buy a package for $20 around that, or $20 range, and it's real easy to get started with one of them pre-rigged packages.
Right. And I think one of the things that kind of gets lost on people is the impact that fishing, with a family member has. It sounds silly, but some of my fondest memories were, fishing with my dad, my family, down in North Carolina, and doing those things. And I think that, for my son as well, like you had said, fishing with him has been wonderful for us. It's been a great way to build our relationship. I've tried to take your advice and, make sure that he's catching something. So we do a lot of sunfish for him, and we had a day where I think he caught like 30 fish or something like that, and it was phenomenal for him. You could just see, like, it definitely hooked him, and he's into it. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how fishing has kind of changed your life and some of the things that you've gone through. I think it's pretty powerful, and not a lot of people know about it. So if you'd be willing to share your story, I think it would be really interesting.
Yeah, when back in the like 1997-ish, that area, my wife, Cody's mom, Cody, my son. I mean, I got 3 kids. I got a daughter, Sarah, Ryan, and Cody are my kids that I have. I have a stepson, Jay. That all these people, you try to get into the fishing industry. Actually, I'm going to tell my age here a little bit, but I actually have 4 grandchildren too. So, and then all of these people, I try to take fishing and get out on the water or ice fishing as much as I can. But back in '97, like I said, my wife had breast cancer. So it was Cody's mom, and then, me and my son, we were pretty close and did a lot of hunting and fishing together before, Vicky had her breast cancer. So that was it was a 5-year battle. She was in remission a couple different times, but in 2003, she actually passed away from the breast cancer. But in this meantime of this fighting this breast cancer, I mean, she was all for me and Cody fishing and doing the things that we like to do, hunting and fishing. I mean, she was a real trooper, and never once let her sickness get in our way. I mean, it was really positive of her to try to keep this momentum going of me and Cody, because we knew what the outcome might be. So I mean, she wanted to make sure that we did what we like to do. So, but what me and Cody started to do, he didn't like to ice fish or summer fish. He liked to ice fish.
Why was that?
And then that's what.
Why did he prefer
hot? He didn't like to be out in the heat.
Okay.
He wasn't a big swimmer. So he just whenever we'd go fishing, a lot of times he would stay on shore. He liked to help my brother farm. That was hot weather too, but he just didn't get into the summer fishing as much as he really did like to ice fish.
Okay.
So when he was 8 years old, fishing, with myself and Cody's grandpa, my father-in-law, we had my first fish house, my fish trap. I had a Vexilar 3-color flasher, which I tell all the adults is, that's your kid's video game, is this 3-color flasher. Mm-hmm. Throw all these video games away. And I mean, Cody had Nintendo, he had all these games, but he opted to take away basically my Vexilar and my fish house, and that's kind of what got him going, and that's what got me going. Is, hey, this kid likes to ice fish by having this equipment.
That's awesome.
So that kind of got us started into, okay, well, I'll pursue this. I did a lot of tournament fishing, summer fishing I had a partner, so I did some walleye tournaments and bass tournaments and stuff like that. So I kind of backed off on my summer tournaments and focused all my attention on this ice fishing, just to keep Cody and me interested. And we got it hooked up with Clam Ice Team and started fishing these trap attacks. And that's basically, getting with these group of people. We would, spend a lot of time. The thing about the trap attacks, it's more about the camaraderie of people just getting together and learning from each other than it was, the pressure of winning the tournaments. And
right.
So that really helped me and Cody and myself move on, after the tragedy of Vicky passing away. It's definitely a life-changing thing when you got a guy, single guy, and now you got a kid to take care of without a mom. It's like, oh my God, now what do I do?
Yeah, mm-hmm. I can imagine.
So I focused on, like I said, this fishing, something that he likes to do, and we spent a lot of time traveling from, we'd state to state, from Iowa to South Dakota, North Dakota, Wisconsin. We just kind of traveled the circuit and fish these tournaments.
That's awesome.
Well, clearly it worked out well, because I've had the pleasure to hang out with you and your son Cody, and he's a wonderful young guy, and the two of you together is hilarious. You keep everyone laughing. So clearly the relationship built was pretty solid and pretty time telling.
Yeah, I think one of the things that kind of gets maybe lost in the community too is because fishing can be a very solo experience, but it can also be, like you said, a very community oriented experience. And I think that's the thing that gets lost on a lot of people is that, when you start, you might start off on your own, but there's a huge support network out there. There's a lot of people who want to talk about it, a lot of people who want to help you out. And I think that's something that people should really know about.
Yeah, there's a lot of seminars that go on. A lot of your community, not just the DNR, but the community, they hold some events like that too. We try to get involved with as much as that as we can.
Right.
And helping out wherever we can. Ice Team Universities, there's a lot of different things that are out there. It's just the parents have to take the step and make this happen. And not everybody likes to fish, but there is somebody usually in your family, some relative that does like to fish. So trying to get them kids started off with that.
Right. And like you said, that Vexilar truly does kind of feel like a video game. It sounds silly to probably everyone else, but that's kind of what hooked me on ice fishing. I really love ice fishing, and it's because I have this like visual representation of what's happening. And so it really is like a game. You see it happening, you see that red line coming up to your bait. You can immediately tell if you need to change your presentation or if you're doing it right. It's a ton of fun. And I think that's something that, if you're not born in the ice belt, maybe you don't know. Some people might view ice fishing as kind of like this boring, old grumpy old men, sitting out on the ice. And it's not, man. It's a ton of fun, and especially if you're, doing what you do, and maybe you can explain kind of the concept of it. But, running and gunning and drilling a bunch of different holes, that is a strategy versus the old way of doing it.
Yeah, the old style of fishing was you sit on a 5-gallon pail and watch a bobber, freeze into the ice as your hole freezes up, your bobber freezes up. But nowadays with the technology of all these different companies, Clam is the one that we work with. They have so many different cool houses, from a one-man house up to 4 to 8, 10 people. The pop-up style. You can just fit multiple people in there, and they're real easy to move around. Obviously, Mr. Heater, you guys got the heaters, and that really helps us keep warm. But in the olden days, with people just sitting there, you just basically didn't catch much. And with the hooking up with the ice team, they just teach a different mentality of fishing, of moving. Starting off, you're fishing. First you do your homework at home. Which lake should I go to? We talked about the bluegills. Trying to get the kids in that. So go to your DNR website. Try to find a stocking report on which lake holds more bluegills or crappies or something that you're going to get these kids to try to catch.
Right.
But then you just you find a weed bed or some type of rock pile or some type of structure. And with the mapping systems, you got Navionics on your phone. Pretty much everybody has a phone now. So hooking up with Navionics, and you got that map right on your phone. You can dial in your spot before you start drilling holes. But a lot of it's just not sitting in one spot.
Right.
Clothing is, Clam. They have.
I've started using my Navionics more. And, a lot of it, it's kind of funny because, you talk about you going out and teaching Cody and teaching the kids. And I kind of feel like, I was a little kid when I first started learning with you because, I've just personally learned a ton from fishing with you. And so now I'm trying to take that and, go and do it myself. And it's not, I'm doing it on the water on my kayak. But I'm having a hard time on my Navionics trying to read the map and know where I should set up. A lot of what I've been doing is looking for the fat lines and the thin lines and, trying to find drop-offs. But how do I use my Navionics to find structure? Am I missing something on there?
No, there's identifications. It will tell you some rocks. Sometimes you want to start out, like I said, before you go to the lake, checking out the different mapping. It might not show you everything. There might be a different map from the DNR or even the Navionics on your computer, checking that stuff out. You may not be seeing it being a smaller screen on your phone, so you might see more details. But there's a lot of stuff. There's a little icon or something. It might show you if it's a rock pile. One of the things that I look for is, you talked about the contour lines, is that wider contour line. That's probably going to be holding some weeds, and that's what I'm looking for. When I'm looking for bluegills, crappies, is that wider contour line where you're coming out of deeper water and you get into that wider contour. That's where your weeds are going to grow. That's one of the things that I look for is that wider contour, and there's a pretty good chance there's going to be some weeds growing there, and then bluegills and crappies will be hanging out in them weeds.
I see.
But there usually is pretty much, there's a lot of identification of what, if you highlight, if there's a little button or something, or you see something, if you highlight on that, it should show you some rocks and stuff.
Okay.
But otherwise, you got to get into a different detailed map of that'll show your rock pile.
Right. Now, and the other big difference, too, is, fishing from a kayak versus ice fishing. And, maybe you can speak a little bit to this, but from my experience, ice fishing has been, it's all vertical jigging, where, when you're fishing from the kayak, there's a bunch of different, techniques that you can use. When you're ice fishing, other than jigging, are there techniques that you've used and been successful with, or is it all just different variances of jigging?
Bobber fishing. I still don't. I still always have a bobber rod with me. A lot of times, when you're reading your sonar, you can see your jig all the time. What depth you are, but sometimes them fish don't want that bait moving. So dead sticking is what I call it. See, in Minnesota here, we can fish with two lines. So a lot of times we may just put a bobber down on one and then be jigging on another one.
Okay.
So that jigging is going to bring them fish in, and all of a sudden, hey, they don't like that moving action. Then they also grab that dead stick, that bobber. You might have a minnow underneath there, maybe even just a waxworm or larva.
Right.
But, they just don't want something moving.
That makes sense.
There's definitely a lot of different variations of how to catch these fish.
What's the difference between, say, like a tip-up and the bobber like you're talking about? Because can't you set up, you said you could have two lines in. Does that count the tip-ups or no?
Yes.
It does count.
You can have you'd be using tip-up, and then there's one line. Let's say you want to set up a tip-up for a pike or walleye. That's, it's a little bit different setup. You don't have to watch that. As you put your tip-up down, you're actually dropping all your line and your mechanism from the tip up underneath the water, so that it doesn't freeze up, where if you had a bobber outside, that bobber would freeze up and the fish would feel that, and it would just let go of the bait. It won't hold on. But with the tip up, it can grab that bait that you're presenting them, and it'll take off running, and the tip up will unspool a flag. Because of the spool moving, the flag pops up, and that indicates that you have a fish on that tip up.
Okay.
And they say they just don't feel that resistance because there's no bobber froze into the ice.
Got it. So if you have two holes inside of your shelter, one's a bobber, one you're jigging on. If you're putting one outside, if you're on, say, like a one man, you might put a tip up outside and then jig in the one man.
In the one man, correct? Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, one other thing that's a really hot topic up there in Minnesota right now is call it slot limits and species kind of being a little bit more centric on certain species. So, like, I remember on Mill Lock, you are allowed, what is it, one walleye that you're allowed to pull out now, or? Yeah,
right now, it all depends on the time of year. The Mille Lacs, it's crazy on some of the rules they have out there. Right now, the fishing shut down there. But otherwise, on let's say Leech Lake, where we fish a lot, there's a 4-fish limit, and you can keep actually a fish 20 to 26. Let's say you have to go back. So a lot of the different lakes they have different slot limits per lake. Depends on how the population is of the lake. Where Mille Lacs right now, it's shut down. We can't even fish on Mille Lacs right now for walleyes. No live bait. They're trying to restructure that lake, but. Every lake, not every lake, majority of the lakes have different rules, and not bluegills, perch. You can only have like 5 bluegills on this lake. Perch is 20, and it's really important to try to manage these things. So some lakes it makes a difference, and some lakes it don't. Some species, I should say, but. Definitely watching what you catch, how many you catch, you can catch all you want, but try to let some of them fish go. and let them bigger fish grow.
Right.
We see that so much that we're taking so many fish out of these lakes, and it's the reproductive fish. So basically, our population of fish are declining rapidly. Right. So that's what they try to put these different length and restrictions on these lakes.
What would you tell to somebody who has typically not been a catch and release fisherman? Say somebody like my grandpa. When we talked about fishing, he even for bass, he thought it was ridiculous that I would throw them back in. He'd line them up on the grass and take a picture of these 3 and 4 pounders that he caught, and he was mortified when he saw me throwing them back in. So what would you say, as an argument if you're having a conversation with someone like that?
My dad's the same way. That's that old school. That the mentality was. They were fishing to eat. So a lot of that is they wanted to. Basically, they're going to kill everything that they caught, because a lot of that was they didn't get to go as much or something. But my dad's the same. And I was like, I had a 26-inch walleye. It's like, Dad, do you want to keep this or let it go? And it's like, we might as well eat it. It is what it is. Everybody's entitled to keep whatever they want, but trying to let them bigger fish go, and that's that's what we try to teach everybody nowadays. So there's a kind of like a dividing line where, all right, let's tell these people to try to let these bigger fish go. If you want to have more fish in the future for your kids to catch, that's the kind of way I look at it. Is I want my kids or grandkids to have a good population of fish to catch. So trying to get that catch and release working, it's going to be beneficial in the long run for everybody.
Right. So if you're talking to the brand new angler, what are some things that they can do? Let's just say ice fishermen specifically. You have a beginning ice fisherman. What are some techniques and things that they can do to reduce mortality when using catch and release fishing?
If you're winter fishing, try to keep the fish, get it back in the hole as quick as you can, especially if it's cold out. You don't want to freeze the fins of the eyes and stuff like that. So fishing in the house is much better than that, so you don't expose that fish to them elements. You can use barbless hooks. That'll help, not get the hook out really easy, so you're not handling that fish, taking so long to handle a fish by removing the hook easily with a barbless hook. Watching the way you hold the fish. Getting it back in the water as quick as possible. It's great to take some pictures, but just make the minimal amount of time for that fish to be out of the water and get them back in. Trying to keep bluegills, keep the smaller, 8 to 9 inch bluegills, and letting them one over 9 inches and 10 inches go, because that's the trophy class. Okay. That's kind of what I do, when I take people fishing. I'd rather let anything over 9 inches go, crappies over 12 inches, let them go. Perch, over 11, keep 10 to 11 inch perch. Over 12, try to let them go. That's your, that's going to be your main reproductive fish.
Got it.
Great.
Good advice.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick pause here to hear from our sponsor, so we'll be right back.
This podcast is presented by Mr. Heater, North America's most popular brand of portable heaters and accessories. Use coupon code PODCAST20 to receive 20% off and free shipping at www.mrheater.com.
One other thing I'll talk about is, not only starting them young, but me and Cody started fishing walleye tournaments again. You go from him not liking the summer fishing to where now we're back in the boat, which, he's 29 years old now, so it's great to be back on the boat for weekends. So
right.
It doesn't just, you don't have to do it just in the start of the, when they're young. We got to, it carries throughout our whole life. So
absolutely. So I guess, to pick back up on the story of Scott. So, so your wife, Vicky, correct, had passed away from breast cancer, and you and Cody started doing going fishing a lot, and then you started doing some tournaments together.
Yep.
Fast forward, I don't know how many, it's, several years later, you meet up with this crazy fun lady,
energetic
lady, Shelley, and talk a little bit about your relationship now and how that's going, because I got to tell you, you guys are hilarious.
Insane. They're so much fun.
So much fun. I mean, it's just a wonderful story. So tell us a little bit now about, some of the stuff that you guys are doing and kind of how that happened and morphed.
Well, part of it is, once Vicky did pass away, I was like, you know what, I'm not getting involved with anybody. You go through that time of your life where it's like, you know what, I just don't want this to happen again, Mm-hmm. So it's like, it was two and probably 3 years before I decided, it was time to redate or, try to connect again. And my buddy who I grew up with, he's invited me to the bar and it's like, hey, let's go out and have a cocktail. And, he was setting me up with actually Shelley, who is my, better half now, but we actually knew each other and we went to school together. So, this is 20 years later that we're kind of reconnecting after going to school together. But so they, went out there, took a couple weekends, a couple different Friday nights and Saturday nights, and it's like, all right, I suppose I'll dance with her. And so basically start dancing.
Hold on one second. I'm picturing you dancing.
Yeah, well,
that was after a couple drinks.
Well, it's more than a couple.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what was the number? How many did it take?
Yeah, let's see. I don't want to answer that. But it's usually quite a few to get me out on the floor. Which we were just at a wedding last Friday night, and it took me a while, but I did. They got to be slow dances,
Okay. You got to warm up with something.
She suckered me into a faster dance. Yeah. Like, she held me out on the floor, so then I had to move a little, try to move my legs and arms like I knew how I was dancing.
Well, after a few drinks, that helps a little bit.
Yep, loosen up a little bit.
So now you're dancing.
Yeah, so after basically, that few weekends, we're dancing, and then obviously make the phone call, and we go do a couple other things, and I just started off, I like to hunt and fish, and that's basically what my life consists of. And I just told her, you know what, this is what I do. If you want to be on board with me, you're gonna, either you want to hunt and fish with me, or I'm going to do it. So that's just the way it is. If you want to be a couple, this is the way I am. And what are we? 12, 13 years later, we're still together. So it looks like she took the bait of me, liking to hunt and fish.
Yeah.
And obviously, it worked out really well. I mean, we've done a lot of things together. Obviously, we're still together, and we kind of sometimes do our own thing. I mean, she's very energetic, as you guys talk, and she likes to do her own thing. I mean, she's always, not always, but she's had 3 or 4 boats of her own, mm-hmm. and so she's not afraid to take off and go fishing or boating by herself. And that's just the way it is. I mean, she's basically a really positive and energetic lady, and that's what I like. It's like, right. I don't like sitting around. I sat around for a couple of years kind of dwelling on the fact that, what happened, and now it's, life come to the conclusion, life's too short, so just live every day as it's your last. So that's kind of how we get through it. And
that's awesome.
So
ice fishing was kind of... Ice fishing was relatively new to Shelley, right? Like, she had done it a little bit as a kid, but it wasn't something that she did all the time. Is that right, or was she really
That's
into
correct.
it? Yeah.
Yep. She did a lot of she fished some with her dad and stuff like that. So her same thing. Her dad got her in fishing. So, but mine was the more competitive, more hardcore fishing. And she started off, came on a couple trips, and then all of a sudden grew onto her, and it's just like, she liked it, and she grew her side of it. And being a woman angler, there's not a lot of woman anglers out there, and as far as her trying to promote that, so that's definitely it worked out for both of us. I had a fishing partner, she had a fishing partner, and here we are. It's like I said, right. 12, 13 years later, we're off, and she's off doing her off and got her captain's license.
Yeah,
she does walleye tournaments. She does the tournament fishing, and then she's doing she actually bought her own boat. She gives me crap now because she's a yacht owner. She bought a 27-foot cabin cruiser boat that she stores out at Bayfield, and she's going to start up some escape excursions. Is what she's trying to start a business up out there where she can take people fishing.
That's
and you
awesome.
can do that, with her captain's license. And that's a big boat, a 27-foot boat for a woman to be driving. But she's all on board with it, and she handles it well, and it's going really good.
Right. That's awesome. So, let me ask you then, does she like to tell you that her boat's bigger than yours?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when I get up there and, well, do you want to drive my boat? The funny story. When she got it up there, and I don't go up there every weekend. She basically goes up there every weekend, but because the weekend I did go up there, I haven't drove. I got a 21-foot Crestliner that I got a 350 on it, so it's a big boat, it's a fast boat. And all of a sudden, she goes, "Well, here, do you want to drive this one?" And I did, and it's like, ooh, this is totally different. And the first time I backed it out of the slip, I just about backed into another boat. Oh, this ain't going to be good. But I managed to get out of it. But it's a different experience driving a big boat like that. And,
she was just recently
got a lot of confidence.
Yeah, yeah, she does. She was just recently in Europe too, right? Some world fishing tour.
USA Match Fishing. So
okay.
They went over there and represented the USA and some match fishing in Hungary. So, this year's been, like she said, what did she say? It's raining vacations this year. She was in Alaska. She went to Alaska for, a week, went to Hungary, and she's going to Hawaii here in another week. And it's like,
man.
Does she need company for Hawaii?
It's going to be a family. Her son and daughter and granddaughter are going, and mom and aunt. Cool. So one of her cousins are getting married, so she's going to be over with a bunch of family. But
that's cool.
It's crazy. So when she gets home, it's like, what was your name again? I got to ask her because it's like I forget because we're apart so much lately.
Well, I definitely look forward to seeing her and you again this December and January, so we can have a couple drinks and dance.
Well, all right. Might have to be a couple more than just a couple.
Okay. You set your own limit.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah.
And Scott, I know the easiest way to contact you is by going to your website, which is www.sksguides.com. Can you kind of talk about some of the services that you guys offer with your guide service?
We'll take people summer fishing, winter fishing, and like I said, with Shelley starting up the excursion, she's going to offer stuff over, in the Apostle Islands. So it's, doesn't matter if it's, one person, two person, or five people. I mean, we definitely try to, encourage the adults to bring their kids with. So, we definitely like to focus on teaching, the kids how to fish. So we really promote that. So, like I said, summertime, 2 hours, 4 hours, we can accommodate pretty much anything, whatever somebody wants to do. So around the metro area or up in we got a cabin in Hackensack. So we spend a lot of time up in that Leech Lake, Winnebagosh area, Woman Lake area. So basically, we're pretty flexible on what somebody wants to do. So we'll accommodate pretty much anything.
And then SKS is made up then of you, Shelley, and Cody, correct?
Correct. Scott, Cody, Shelley. Because I kind of started a little bit before Shelley was in the picture, so it worked out that, it was Scott, Cody, and Shelley.
That's awesome.
SKS, so.
And then I was looking on the website as well. I see you have some pretty cool recipes listed on your website too.
Yeah, that's Shelley's forte. She likes to dabble in the cooking, so she'll comes up with some concoctions once in a while that turn out really good. So
awesome.
She likes to share that.
Once in a while, he said.
Yeah, once in a while.
Well, I can speak to the good ones. We've been up there for a few fish fries and some of the other stuff, and it's been good. So
awesome.
I think people should be aware, though, if they go fishing with these guys, they're going to get, pardon the pun, but they're going to get hooked on it. I mean, it seems like anybody who's around Scott for any amount of time ends up tournament fishing and then apparently owning a boat.
A yacht. I'll have to hang out with Scott a little more often. I think I need a yacht. But I know when I was ice fishing with you, I stayed out as long as you possibly would. You guys were tearing the clam down around me because I was so determined to catch a fish, and I never did.
Mm-hmm. This year
we're catching a fish.
We'll make it happen this year. And that's part of the deal. It's hard to get people to understand that a lot of times, you don't catch a fish every time. We do our dangest to try to get people on fish, but sometimes it just works where they're just not biting. You got so many different, whether your weather, cold weather, or just the changes and stuff like that. It's a struggle sometimes. So it's not as easy as just going out and dropping a line, pulling up a fish. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it.
Absolutely.
Especially sitting in a clam with Corey for a couple hours. I mean, that's a ton of work in itself right there, whether you're fishing or not.
And then, Scott, I know...
Weren't you drinking then, though?
No, I wasn't. That was the problem. This year, everything's changed.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it was one other thing, comment about taking a kid fishing. You always want to do that, and then it goes longer than, just when they're kids, too, because just this past year, 2 years now, Cody, he's 29 now, and we start summer fishing tournaments, walleye tournaments together. So, we're spending weekends in the boat together. He's 29 years old, which is a great feeling for me. I really like to spend time in the boat, and, it's just like, don't let it end. It's always there. So.
Yeah, Scott, I know that there's some products that you use too, and you're one of the original members of the Ice Team. So can you talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you use and working with Ice Team?
Yeah, I mean, we, Clam Corporation, obviously I've been with them, since the start of the Ice Team, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. They have a wide variety of products, and the great part about Clam is they're focusing into the summer now too, but between the fish houses that they offer, suits, they definitely have clothing, everything. They got the whole gamut that it takes to take somebody out fishing, from suits to houses to rods and reels, line, tackle. They basically, it's kind of like a one-stop shop. They got summer long rods. I mean, they got so many different products. So to support the ice fishing, and that's basically how it started off in the ice fishing world, and now they're expanding into the summer market also.
Right.
I would say the products that you guys have, the heaters, obviously that's really important for keeping you warm.
Right. Yeah, especially when you have the kids out there, right? If you're trying to make it a family event, and I would say, just from my experience with you, having a heater, having a shelter, trying to get them on a lot of small fish, that's the way to really get them hooked and keep them coming back, right?
Even when you're an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you're an adult, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't get addicted to it until later in life, too, so. Yeah,
it's never too late to start. But, with the Clam, they got the ice suits for kids. They got the ice suits for women. So that's what's great about working with Clam is, they're exploring. They're not just looking at the guy thing. And that was the hardest part that I have. Well, I like to help, a lot of these women events is get there's more than just the guys going fishing. As, when I drug Shelly into it, it's like, she's involved. So, let's accommodate these guys too. So it's not just a guy sport.
Right. Yeah. It's not just grumpy old men out on the ice. It's families. It's, husbands and wives. So you can really make it what you want it to be, which is awesome. So, So Scott,
you get the snowmobile, the Arctic Cat.
Right. So if they want to find out more about you, SKSguides.com. I know that you've been featured on a few Across the Ice Belt episodes. So do you have any idea where anybody could find those episodes?
Outdoors.
Jason Mitchell Outdoors, yeah. So just a Google search, and they can find out some more on you?
Yep, and I know Ice Team, basically go to the Ice Team websites. You can watch the past episodes. You can get a lot of information off that. Jason Mitchell Outdoors has the same thing. If somebody wants to get a hold of me, they can, the website, or, call me. I got you can call my cell, 612-759-845. Definitely that works too, so.
Cool. Well, Scott, thank you again very much for coming on today and kind of telling us your story here, and hopefully somebody else who's listening has heard that, and maybe they're going through a similar situation, and can use this to help them get through that as well. So
Definitely.
We really appreciate you coming on and talking about it. I know it's not an easy thing to talk about, but again, hopefully someone's heard it, and maybe it'll have an impact on their lives too.
Yeah, I can say it. If anybody has, I'll definitely, if it's not about fishing. If somebody has the same situation and they want to talk to me, I'll definitely, let them know how I feel. It never goes away, but it does get easier, as the years go on. I'll say that, but you never forget. But definitely would be willing to help somebody out if they need the help.
Right.
Great.
Cool. Well, thank you very much again, Scott.
Thanks,
we really
Scott.
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you, Scott. All right.
We'll see you out on the ice in January.
Right. We'll get Sarah a fish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bigger than Corey's.
Because that's the only thing that matters now.
Yes.
All right, Scott. Thanks a lot.
right, thank you.
We'll talk to you later.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.